enough is enough. They can't all be brilliant, can they? I actually wasn't that bothered about a 76mm equivalent lens, and as I'm not personally invested into the f2 range, I don't have the 23 or the 35 f2, well, I didn't have some OCD need to complete the trio. But since using it a lot more, I can't write this little beauty off just yet. The lens itself is an all-metal construction, so a nice solid feel to it. You've got an f2 to f16 range, and as you can possibly hear, it clicks through the range nicely. Of course, you've got your auto at that end too. The lens features a 39 centimeters minimum focus. The focus ring is smooth and sure. The lens itself, without the included plastic hood and the caps, weighs 200 grams. It's 60 by 59.4mm at the widest point. Let's take a quick look at that hood again. Of course, it adds a bit of length and you might choose to not use it. I still think it looks quite decent, but considering you can shrink this down a little bit more for the additional protection and maybe help with contrast in some situations. Something that's not ideal is the filter thread of 46mm, slightly awkward if you compare that to its siblings, the 23 and the 35 f2. And of course, while we're looking up close, the lens has weather resistant features. It fits perfectly on a T10 or T20, for example, or even the T2, which I sampled it on, and of course the T1. Maybe on the X Pro bodies, it's a tiny bit awkward, but I think you'll be fine with it too. Not a big deal. The autofocus, to my mind, it's accurate. It's rapid. It's probably one of the better performers out there for the X series range at the moment, to be honest. It could always be faster, frankly, even on the latest bodies. Let's be honest, it's not blazing. Well, it's enough. It's enough for me, but you know, can always get better. The files are true, sharp across the frame. In fact, if only you could see my face when I was reviewing the images afterwards on the MacBook. Yeah, I was impressed, that's for sure. There was some kind of wow factor that I really wasn't expecting. The bokeh is nice. It's not magical 56mm 1.2 nice, but you know what? I'm not going to complain about it at all. You'd have to be a serious pixel peeper and therefore not particularly aimed at with this camera. Also, the color and the contrast was no disappointment. There was no major problems with flare, nothing with chromatic aberration, distortion, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's all about the image, and especially with the latest sensors, it works a treat. It really just draws it all out, as I find is a common thread these days. But it works very well on the older sensors, such as, in this case, I've just put it on a T10. Yeah, no bothers at all with that. And in fact, that might be a great little combo for you, maybe your street guys or your documentary photographers. As always, I'm going to throw up some sample shots, shot wide open with the T2, just around town. And funny as it is, weather resistant turned out to be useful when I was doing it. So yeah, let's take a little look. Wide open, straight out the camera, just so we can see where the base level is, instead of adding a whole bunch of editing on top of it and ruin the core values. fairly, people will want to compare this lens with the 56mm 1.2 and maybe even the 60. So what's the short version? If you really must go for the best bokeh and poetry, then the slightly slower, larger, more expensive 56mm 1.2, that's the one for you. But if you don't need to shoot at 1.2, then seriously consider the f2, unless you need the very closest focusing lens of the three, and of course that's the 60mm, but that's a bit slower, a bit more clunky. You decide if that's okay for you. I quite like that lens actually. I didn't think I'd say this for many reasons, but I think if you need a light, small, weather resistant, fast, decently close focusing lens, this 50mm f2 is a winner at a decent price, going by market values these days. For the majority of a wedding shoot, this lens offers me more advantages than the 56mm 1.2 at the cost of the real magic, but it still creates amazing images. It's discreet, lightweight, the weather sealing is a bonus, and it renders the images beautifully. Of course, if money really is a factor, you've got that too over the others. In fact, the sharpness was surprisingly special. So, you know, you could say it's got its own magic, couldn't you? But they can't all be brilliant, can they? Well, it seems Fujifilm still have a lot more to say on that question. Big thanks to Andy for the loaner of the lens. Check him out at Flickr, AM Taylor Photography. Subscribe for more. Let us know what you think below. Unless you're a troll, in which case we do love you, but please play nicely.